Hi guys, it says I'm live, so here I am live. New background today. I moved into a different bedroom. See, I have a bunk bed too. I sleep in the bottom part. Don't worry about that. Anyway, so I wasn't planning on doing any videos today, but I am drinking a beer, so it gave me the courage to try. Okay, so um, one of my biggest hesitations in making videos is feeling uh, feeling like giving a book due consideration um, is difficult. And so if I don't feel like I've thought it through or I'm able to present it adequately, then it makes me hesitate. But beer makes me um, less hesitant, and and that's probably a good thing. Like, given the Dunning Kruger effect and everything, um, I know that I'm capable of presenting, say, in this case, Tolstoy's Confession, in a way that will allow the average reader to understand it, get something out of it, make an assessment. Is this a good book? Is this something I'd potentially read in the future? So, beer does that for me. Okay, so Tolstoy's A Confession. So you can see this volume says Tolstoy's A Confession and Other Religious Writings. So I'm actually going to, if all goes well, also present on one of these in here, which is What is Religion, is its name. And I'm also a bit later going to talk about Tolstoy's What is Art, which I finally read. Okay. Um, Tolstoy's Confession, I first read it in the summer between grade 11 and 12. Uh, I bought it in Vancouver for my family's trip out there. Biggest trip our family ever took. Anyway, I saw it there in the university library, or sorry, university bookstore, UBC, University of British Columbia, one of the biggest universities in Canada, for those who don't know. I picked it up, and because I had already fallen in love with Tolstoy, read his War and Peace. I'm pretty sure I read Anna Karenina by then, and I was really curious to see, what his views on things were, because War and Peace really just blew me away. It was just a tidal wave of excellence. Okay, and even still, like, I always say that War and Peace is my favorite novel or whatever favorite, but lately I've been saying it's Don Quixote. But whatever, they're one and two, right? Anyway, so his confession, and the title Confession should bring up two things. Should remind you of two things. The most famous confession, Saint Augustine's Confession, that he wrote in about 397, and that was the first work called Confession, and his scholars call it the first autobiography ever written. Um, so it should remind you of that, but it should also remind you of Rousseau's Confession. Okay, and in fact, Rousseau's Confession influenced Tolstoy more than Saint Augustine's did. Although in my heart of hearts, I believe that though Tolstoy wouldn't want to admit this, his views were more similar to Saint Augustine's than they were to Rousseau's. That would be offensive to Tolstoy, but it's nevertheless true. Excuse me. I had a cough for like literally 3 weeks now. Um, it's just constant and won't go away. Is it coronavirus? Does anyone still call it coronavirus? Probably is. I don't know. Is it an infection? Am I dying of consumption like Keats did when he was 26? I'm 50 now, so I got almost twice the life. Okay, Confession is super interesting. It's let me just see. It's a short read, relatively speaking. It's like, I don't know, 60, 70 pages long. Um, but again, it's one of those works that was earth-shattering for me when I read it. And this whole volume was earth-shattering for me. Um, and really, you know, at that point, I had just started in, you know, contacting my local Catholic church and asked about, can I become Catholic or whatever. So I was just starting to talk to the people up there, and that when I read that work in the summer, it really gave me a sense of just how radical the gospel is. That it's not a wishy-washy thing, and that it has these massive implications for the Christian disciple, like that the gospel demands an absolute rejection of evil, right? And so for Tolstoy, the worst evil, the greatest evil is violence. Um, and he was a pacifist, and became a pacifist. I'm no longer a pacifist, but I believed I was for 5 or 10 years. Um, I think pacifism is wrong now, but I understand. So Tolstoy was very influential on Gandhi, very influential on Martin Luther King Jr. and that whole ilk. Um, but Tolstoy's confession is was written at the end of the 1870s. So we're talking, he began the decade of the 1870s having finished Anna Karenina. So he was riding high. His fame was at its max. He had written War and Peace about 5 or 10 years before that, Anna Karenina, and then everything just fell apart for Tolstoy in terms of um, his psychological health, his mental health, his intellectual foundations, his worldview, all that, and it became an absolute crisis. And so he describes, he begins with his early life, and he says, religion was a part of life. Growing up in Russia, Russian Orthodoxy was just a way of life or whatever. He talks about when he became an adolescent, he was told that religion's not important. He doesn't need to say his prayers anymore. Um, and, that, he realized that religion is just kind of lip service type thing, that people who, he realized that the educated and the elite, both of which he was, Tolstoy was lower nobility. He was Count Leo Tolstoy. So he's lower nobility. He was wealthy, famous, um, incredibly intelligent, um, at the height of his popularity, and he just couldn't take it anymore. And he wanted to know what the meaning of life was. He saw that life had no meaning, and as he develops in some of his other works, he says that unless you have a religious sense, unless you have a consciousness of the meaning of life, then life is impossible. And so that was one of the main things that got him, one of those axioms that got him out of his suicidal depression, that he said that, like, life is impossible like this, therefore life can't be impossible, therefore life must need religion, therefore religion is true. Now, obviously, I don't agree with that, with the logic of that argument. um, I think the conclusion is life is absurd and meaningless. And sorry, distract yourself with other things so you don't commit suicide. Go play baseball. Read some Tolstoy. Build yourself a bunk bed. Um, whatever. The Confessions is very moving, um, and very approachable. You have to read it carefully if you want to follow his train of thought, but nevertheless, even if you don't grasp each of the sort of pieces that he moves along in his construction of his new religious belief, even if you don't get all the steps, then uh, you will get a lot out of the book anyway. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about Augustine's Confession. I highly recommend it. Um, It's a quick, powerful read. So thanks, guys. I'll be back in a minute.